"You will stand beside my daughter," the alien queen said. The human froze. Rivers shimmered with colors Elia's ray had never seen before, flowing like liquid light through towering trees that stretched so high they seemed to touch the heavens. He stood at the edge of the landing platform, watching in awe as the alien world unfolded before him. Every sense of his body tingled with excitement and cautious anticipation. Earth had sent him here as a diplomat, a human representative to meet the Scifi, one of the galaxy's oldest and most mysterious civilizations. Humans were rare on Clethara. Many species had doubted their worth, yet here he was, a human among beings who considered themselves both wise and ancient. Elias adjusted his uniform and checked his equipment. He was aware of the risks. The Scifi were intelligent, powerful, and most of all proud. Any mistake could end the mission, or worse, spark conflict. Despite the dangers, Elias could not deny the thrill of being here, standing on a planet that looked like a dream from a storybook. He had trained for months to understand the Scifi language and culture, but nothing could truly prepare him for the reality of meeting the Queen herself. A low hum resonated through the air, and the platform beneath his feet shifted ever so slightly. Elias turned his head and saw a group of Scifi approaching. They moved with grace and precision, their tall, slender forms bathed in the soft glow of their natural bioluminescence. Their skin shimmered with patterns of light, changing subtly as they walked, reflecting moods and intentions. Elias had read about this in the briefings, but seeing it live was unlike anything he had imagined. The Scifi communicated in ways that were part speech, part visual signal, part emotion. Understanding them was a delicate dance, and he had to be careful not to misstep. One of the Scifi stepped forward, its glowing eyes locking onto his. It spoke in a melodic voice, perfectly translated through the universal translator. "Captain Elias Ray, the Queen awaits you. Follow us." Elias nodded, swallowing the lump of nervousness in his throat. He had prepared for countless scenarios, yet nothing could shake the feeling of walking into the palace of a being whose wisdom and power were legendary. The palace itself was beyond imagination. Rising from the heart of the forest, crystalline towers stretched into the sky, refracting the light of the twin suns in dazzling patterns. The walls pulsed gently, as if alive, breathing along with the world around them. Elias felt a mixture of awe and humility. He followed the Scifi guide through wide halls that seemed endless. The floors glowed softly beneath his feet, and intricate patterns of light danced along the walls, responding to his presence. It was clear that the palace was not just a building but a living entity, designed to harmonize with every being who entered it. Finally, they reached the throne room. The doors, massive and crystalline, parted silently, revealing a space that was both intimidating and beautiful. At the center sat the queen, Lyra, her form elegant and commanding. Her skin was a deep, shimmering hue that reflected the colors of the palace around her. She had a presence that made the air feel heavier, as if every word she spoke carried immense weight. Beside her, slightly behind, stood Princess Elara, her young eyes observing everything with curiosity and caution. Elias stopped, unsure of how to approach. He had expected a formal greeting, perhaps a ceremonial protocol, but nothing had prepared him for the Queen's next words. Her voice, clear and resonant, echoed through the hall, and yet there was a weight to it that made him freeze. "You will stand beside my daughter." The words were simple, but their meaning was immense. Elias felt his heart race. He understood that in Scifi culture, this was not merely an invitation. It was a declaration of trust, a recognition of worth, and a test of courage. Every fiber of his being told him to move carefully. Standing beside the princess would make him part of something far greater than he had anticipated, and any mistake could have consequences he could not imagine. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. His mind raced through all the lessons, protocols, and advice he had received. He needed to show respect, confidence and humility all at once. "Your Majesty, I am honored," he said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions within him. "I will do my best to serve and stand beside your daughter." The queen's gaze seemed to pierce through him, reading not just his words but the very intentions of his heart. She nodded once, a gesture that was both approving and calculating. Elias could feel the weight of centuries of tradition pressing down upon him, yet there was also a hint of something else, perhaps curiosity or a recognition of potential. Princess Elara's eyes met his briefly, and for a moment he felt a flicker of connection. It was subtle, but it reminded him that beneath the majesty and power of this alien culture were individuals, beings capable of thought, emotion, and trust. He followed the queen and princess through a series of corridors that twisted and turned like the roots of some gigantic tree. Every step revealed new wonders, rooms that seemed to float in midair, gardens that glowed with a soft, otherworldly light, and creatures of all shapes and sizes that observed them silently. The Scifi were a civilization deeply connected to their world, and it showed in everything they had built. Elias could not help but admire their creativity, intelligence, and harmony with their environment. At one point, the queen paused at a balcony overlooking the heart of the palace. Below, hundreds of Scifi moved with purpose, carrying out tasks that seemed both complex and effortless. The queen's voice was soft, almost contemplative. "Captain Elias Ray, humans are different. You have a way of seeing things that we sometimes miss. It is why I have chosen to have you stand beside my daughter. There is potential in you that could bring new perspectives to our world." Elias felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had been trained for this mission, but hearing such words from a being of immense power was overwhelming. He knew that his actions in the coming days would be watched closely, not just by the queen and princess, but by the entire Scifi society. Every choice mattered. Every gesture, every word, every decision could influence the course of history. Princess Elara finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Captain, you must understand our ways. It is not enough to follow orders. You must observe, learn, and act with wisdom. Standing beside me is not a reward, it is a responsibility." Elias nodded, taking in her words. He could see that she was intelligent, perceptive, and strong-willed. She was more than a princess. She was a leader in training, and he would have to earn her trust through actions, not words. As they continued their walk, Elias noticed the subtle tests that surrounded him. Some were simple, a creature approaching that required careful interaction, a puzzle of light and sound that needed solving, but they were clearly designed to gauge his character. He approached each challenge thoughtfully, using his human intuition, creativity, and empathy. Slowly, he began to feel that he was not just being tested, but also being observed for his unique qualities, qualities that perhaps no other species could offer. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. Elias learned more about the Scifi culture in that time than he had in months of study. He began to understand the depth of their wisdom, their connection to their world, and the importance they placed on trust, courage, and integrity. Every challenge, every interaction was a lesson, and he absorbed it all, knowing that his role beside Princess Elara would require him to embody these principles fully. By the time they reached a quiet chamber filled with glowing plants and soft, ambient light, Elias felt a sense of calm determination. The queen spoke once more, her voice carrying both authority and warmth. "Remember, Captain, you are here not just as a human, but as a bridge. The way you act, the way you think, the way you care, these things matter. Our worlds are different, but through understanding, respect, and courage, we can find common ground." Elias bowed slightly, acknowledging the immense responsibility placed upon him. He had traveled across the stars, leaving behind everything familiar, and now stood on the threshold of a new chapter, not just for himself, but for the potential connection between humans and Scifi. Princess Elara looked at him with a mix of curiosity and expectation. "Tomorrow your lessons truly begin," she said. "Today you have only glimpsed what it means to stand beside me. Are you ready to learn?" Elias met her gaze, feeling a surge of determination. "I am ready," he replied. And though he did not yet know the challenges that awaited him, he felt a quiet confidence. He was human, and while he may be different, he knew that his courage, empathy, and ingenuity would guide him. In that moment, among the glowing forests and crystalline walls, he took the first true step toward becoming more than just a visitor, toward becoming a trusted ally, a companion, and a symbol of the potential of humanity. The twin suns dipped lower, casting long shadows across the palace grounds. Elia's ray stood beside Princess Elara, frozen for a moment in awe, yet filled with a determination that would carry him through the trials ahead. The journey had just begun, and the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what a human could bring to the world of the Zyrathi. The morning light filtered through the crystalline walls of the palace, casting rainbow-like patterns across the floor. Elia's ray awoke with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today was the first day of his lessons with Princess Elara, and he knew that standing beside her was far more than a simple honor. It was a responsibility, a test, and perhaps the beginning of a bond that could shape the future of two worlds. After a simple meal, he was escorted to a large training hall by a young Zyrathi aide. The hall was unlike anything Elias had seen. Its walls shimmered with soft light that reacted to movement, and the floor was smooth, but alive with subtle vibrations. The room was designed not just for physical training, but for mental and emotional growth. Here the Zyrathi taught balance, awareness, and understanding of both oneself and others. Princess Elara entered quietly, her presence calm but commanding. Her eyes met Elias's, and he felt a spark of challenge there. "You are awake early," she said. "Good. Discipline begins with awareness, and awareness begins with observation. Today, you will learn more than you may think." Elias nodded. He understood that every lesson would be layered, designed to teach not only skills but also values. "I am ready, Princess," he said. The first exercise was deceptively simple. Elara led him to a section of the hall where small, glowing creatures moved in complex patterns. They were curious and intelligent, but cautious. Elias was asked to interact with them, to earn their trust without using force or aggression. Many of the Zyrathi would have seen this as trivial, but he quickly realized the deeper meaning. These creatures responded to empathy, attention, and calm determination, qualities that humans often overlooked in favor of brute strength. He knelt slowly, letting the creatures approach him. At first, they hesitated, their lights flickering nervously. Elias remained still, speaking softly, and using gestures he hoped would be understood. Minutes passed. He felt the tension in the room, the silent observation of Elara, and the subtle scrutiny of the hall itself, which seemed to watch his every move. Slowly, one of the creatures inched closer, then another. By the end of the exercise, several of them were circling him, their lights pulsing in what he interpreted as acceptance. Princess Elara's lips curved in a slight smile. "You have patience," she said. "Most would fail this first test because they try to control rather than understand. But you are human. Your way of thinking, your way of observing is unusual. It is valuable." Elias felt a small thrill of pride but kept his focus. He had learned long ago that in this world pride could be dangerous. Every action was a lesson, every response a reflection of his character. He nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Princess. I will remember this." The next challenge was more physical, yet no less demanding. The floor of the hall shifted subtly, creating patterns of light and shadow that Elias had to navigate while maintaining balance and focus. At the same time, floating spheres emitted soft pulses of energy, each representing a different emotion: fear, joy, curiosity, anger. Elias had to move carefully, avoiding or redirecting the energy without causing harm. At first, he stumbled. The spheres bounced unpredictably, and the shifting floor made every step uncertain. He reminded himself to breathe, to observe patterns, and to think beyond immediate reactions. Slowly, he began to understand the rhythm of the hall. He moved with purpose, guiding the spheres gently, allowing some to pass through harmlessly while deflecting others without force. Elara watched intently, her expression unreadable. "You are learning faster than I expected," she said. "Humans often rely on instinct, and that instinct can be chaotic, but you are using it wisely. You combine instinct with reason, and that is rare." Elias felt a mixture of relief and curiosity. He had trained for physical challenges, but these lessons were more than that. They tested his mind, his heart, and his understanding of others. He realized that being beside Elara would require this kind of awareness constantly. He would need to think quickly, act wisely, and maintain respect for the world and its creatures at all times. After a short rest, Elara led him outside to the crystal gardens. The gardens were a labyrinth of glowing plants, each one humming with life and energy. Some of the plants reacted to sound, others to movement. Elias was tasked with navigating the gardens to reach a central fountain, but he could not touch or damage a single plant. At first, the task seemed impossible. Every step had to be calculated, every movement measured. Elias observed carefully, noticing the subtle patterns in the plant's reactions. He slowed his pace, matching his breathing to the rhythm of the garden. Step by step, he advanced, avoiding obstacles and respecting the life around him. When he finally reached the fountain, Elara nodded approvingly. "You are learning balance and harmony," she said. "This is not just a lesson about plants, it is about life. Every being, every decision, every action has consequences. To stand beside me, you must understand this." Elias bowed slightly. He understood that these lessons were designed not to teach simple skills but to shape character. He had thought diplomacy would be about words and gestures, but here it was about presence, awareness, and understanding. He felt a growing respect for the Xyrathi way of life, and also a sense of pride in the unique perspective humans could bring. As the day continued, the lessons grew more complex. Elias and Elara engaged in exercises that tested memory, strategy, and empathy. They encountered simulations of difficult situations, negotiating with rival factions, calming fearful creatures, and making decisions that balanced risk and reward. Each scenario required Elias to think creatively, to observe deeply, and to act with integrity. Through it all, he noticed something remarkable. Elara did not simply test him, she guided him. Her presence was challenging but supportive. She pushed him to think beyond himself, to consider others, and to find solutions that combined logic with compassion. Elias realized that standing beside her would mean more than following orders. It would mean partnership, trust, and mutual understanding. By evening, Elias was exhausted but exhilarated. He had learned more in one day than he had imagined possible. The palace, the creatures, the gardens, and the hall were all teachers, and he had absorbed their lessons with focus and determination. He felt a growing connection to Elara, not just as a student to a teacher, but as two beings learning from each other. As they walked back to the main palace, Elara spoke quietly. "You have done well today, Elias, but these lessons are only the beginning. Tomorrow, you will face challenges that test not only skill but character. You must be ready to make choices that may surprise even yourself." Elias nodded, understanding the weight of her words. He had expected diplomacy to be difficult, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. It was not just about representing Earth or pleasing the Queen. It was about proving that humans could bring value, insight, and courage to a world far beyond their own. That night, Elias lay in his quarters, thinking about the day. He reflected on the creatures, the shifting floors, the gardens, and Elara's guidance. He understood that the path ahead would be challenging, filled with tests that demanded more than intelligence or bravery. They demanded heart, wisdom, and the ability to connect across differences. He realized that this was the essence of what the queen had asked. To stand beside her daughter was not a reward, but a responsibility. It was a chance to show that humans, though different, could rise to the occasion, adapt to new worlds, and earn trust through actions and integrity. Sleep eventually came, though it was filled with dreams of glowing forests, intelligent creatures, and the quiet voice of Princess Elara reminding him to observe, to understand, and to act with care. Elias felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. He was a human, far from home, standing on a world that was both beautiful and challenging. And for the first time, he felt that being human might be the greatest advantage of all. The twin suns set behind the crystalline towers, casting long shadows across the palace grounds. Elias Ray closed his eyes, knowing that tomorrow would bring new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove himself. The journey had only just begun, and he was determined to meet it with courage, wisdom, and the unique qualities that made him human. In the quiet of the palace, under the watchful gaze of the stars and the twin suns, Elias made a silent promise to himself. He would honor the trust placed in him, learn all he could, and stand beside Princess Elara not as a stranger, but as a companion, a protector, and a bridge between worlds. The morning on Clethara dawned with a soft, golden light, and Elias Ray woke with a sense of both anticipation and unease. Yesterday's lessons had tested him in ways he had never imagined, and while he had succeeded in navigating the palace's creatures and challenges, he knew the journey was far from over. Today felt different. There was a tension in the air, subtle but undeniable, as if the palace itself sensed something shifting beneath the calm surface. Elias dressed quickly and joined the princess in the palace courtyard. Princess Elara was already waiting, her eyes scanning the horizon with sharp awareness. "Today, the lessons will be different," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You will see not only the beauty of our world but also the challenges we face. To stand beside me, you must understand both." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had grown accustomed to her guidance, but this tone suggested that the day would push him in ways beyond skill or balance. Together, they walked toward a section of the palace rarely visited by humans. It was a place where the Scifi kept their archives and conducted sensitive diplomatic matters. As they entered, Elias noticed the subtle tension among the Scifi staff. Whispers in their melodic language passed between them, eyes darting toward the princess, and then to him. Elias understood that something was happening beneath the surface, but he did not yet know the full scope. Elara led him to a room filled with floating holographic displays, each one showing maps, records, and data about distant worlds and their interactions with the Scifi. "You will learn about our political challenges," Elara explained. "Not all Scifi are united in purpose. Some see the alliance with humans as unnecessary or even dangerous. You must understand this, Elias. Sometimes, it is not strength alone that protects, but wisdom and foresight." The first lesson was simple in appearance but complex in meaning. Elara presented him with scenarios involving rival factions within the palace. Each faction had its own agenda, its own priorities, and its own methods of influence. Elias was asked to analyze their motives, predict potential conflicts, and propose solutions that maintained balance without compromising integrity. At first, Elias felt overwhelmed. The web of relationships, hidden agendas, and subtle rivalries was unlike anything he had studied on Earth. Yet he remembered the lessons of patience, observation, and empathy he had learned from the creatures and the shifting hallways of the palace. He began to see patterns, how certain behaviors indicated alliances, how minor actions could signal loyalty or dissent. He made his first recommendation: a method of negotiation that respected the traditions of each faction while subtly guiding them toward cooperation. Elara listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. "You are learning to see beyond the obvious," she said. "Humans often approach problems differently, but your perspective is valuable. Do not underestimate the power of understanding Elias." Their lesson was interrupted by a sudden alert. One of the palace sensors indicated unusual activity near the eastern gate. Elara's eyes narrowed. "It seems our visitors arrived sooner than expected," she said. "Follow me." Elias followed her through winding corridors to the observation platform. Below, a group of Xyrathi approached, moving with purpose and precision. They were emissaries from a rival faction, and their arrival was unexpected. The tension in the air was palpable. Elara turned to him. "You must remain calm. Observe carefully. Every gesture, every word, every movement can carry meaning." Elias felt the familiar surge of adrenaline but forced himself to focus. He had learned to rely on his instincts tempered by observation. He watched the emissaries carefully, noting their posture, their eyes, and the subtle pulses of light across their skin. The emissaries entered the chamber and bowed formally to the princess. Their leader spoke in a measured, melodic tone. "Princess Elara, we come with concerns regarding recent decisions in the council. We seek clarity and understanding." Elias noticed the tension behind the words, the underlying suggestion that the princess's leadership was being questioned. Many Xyrathi might have responded with pride or defiance, but Elara remained composed. She invited the emissaries to speak fully, listening attentively while Elias observed their reactions. When it was his turn to speak, Elias drew on everything he had learned. He remained calm, respectful, and thoughtful, acknowledging the concerns of the emissaries while presenting solutions that balanced the interests of all parties. He did not speak as a human trying to assert dominance, but as an ally seeking understanding. His approach surprised the emissaries. They had expected arrogance, dismissal, or rigid adherence to protocol. Instead, they found insight, patience, and careful reasoning. Elara nodded subtly, her eyes conveying approval. Elias felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. He had acted not out of pride, but out of understanding, a quality that seemed to earn respect even in a culture as complex as the Xyrathi. The day continued with a series of challenges designed to test his adaptability and moral judgment. In one exercise, Elias was asked to mediate a dispute between two Xyrathi families over territorial boundaries in the Crystal Gardens. He listened carefully to both sides, asking questions and considering their needs. He proposed a solution that honored tradition while allowing flexibility, and the families accepted his guidance. In another exercise, he encountered a simulation of a natural disaster. A holographic storm threatened a village, and he had to coordinate the response while considering safety, resources, and morale. Elias used his human creativity to devise a plan that was both efficient and compassionate. He organized teams, prioritized actions, and adapted quickly as the scenario changed. By the end, the simulation ended successfully, and Elara's expression reflected quiet approval. Throughout the day, Elias noticed subtle lessons embedded in each scenario. The Xyrathi were testing not only his intelligence and courage, but also his character. They were observing how he treated others, how he balanced logic with empathy, and how he remained composed under pressure. He realized that being beside Elara would demand not just skill, but integrity, patience, and the ability to inspire trust. As the twin suns began to set, Elias and Elara walked through the gardens. The glowing plants cast soft light across their path, and the air was filled with the gentle hum of life. Elias felt a deep sense of connection to this world, its people, and its values. He understood that standing beside the princess was not a simple honor. It was a commitment to understanding, protecting, and contributing to a society far different from his own. "You have done well today," Elara said softly, "but the challenges will grow more complex. Not all threats come from nature or circumstance. Some come from within. There are those who will question our choices, who may seek to disrupt what we are building. You must be prepared to face them." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had expected diplomacy to be difficult, but now he understood that leadership itself was a test of character. To support Elara, he would need to anticipate challenges, act with wisdom, and maintain the trust of both allies and skeptics. As night fell, Elias reflected on the day. He had navigated political tensions, mediated disputes, and demonstrated the unique qualities humans could bring to complex situations. He had learned that courage was not just about facing danger, but about thinking clearly, acting ethically, and building trust. In the quiet of his quarters, he thought about the future. The galaxy was vast, and humans were small in comparison. Yet here on Clethara, he realized that being human could be a strength. His ability to adapt, empathize, and reason in ways different from the Zyrathi could make him a bridge between worlds, a companion to the princess, and a force for harmony. Sleep came slowly, filled with visions of shimmering gardens, glowing corridors, and the intense, thoughtful eyes of Princess Elara. Elias felt a growing sense of purpose. He had been tested, and he had risen to the challenge. But he knew that the most difficult trials were still ahead, and he would need every ounce of courage, wisdom, and humanity to face them. The twin suns had set behind the crystalline towers, leaving the palace bathed in the soft glow of bioluminescence. Elias Ray lay in his quarters, listening to the quiet hum of life beyond his window. He thought of the Queen's words, of Elara's guidance, and of the challenges yet to come. He understood that standing beside the princess was not a simple position or honor. It was a responsibility that demanded excellence, integrity, and heart. Tomorrow, the trials would continue. Tomorrow, he would face new tests, both seen and unseen. And Elias knew, deep within himself, that he was ready. For the first time on this distant world, far from Earth, he felt truly capable of rising to the challenge. He was human, yes, but that humanity, the combination of curiosity, courage, empathy, and intelligence, was what might make all the difference. He closed his eyes, ready to embrace whatever awaited him next, and to continue the journey that would define not only his destiny, but the future of two worlds connected by trust, understanding, and the unique qualities of humanity. The morning light arrived gently over Clethara, casting its golden glow across the palace and the glowing forests beyond. Elias Ray awoke with a sense of anticipation, tempered with unease. He had survived the lessons, navigated the palace's intricate challenges, and gained a measure of trust with Princess Elara, but today felt different. The air carried a subtle tension, an unspoken warning that not all was as calm as it appeared. Elias dressed quickly, ensuring his uniform was neat, and made his way to the palace courtyard. Princess Elara was already there, waiting with a look of concentration on her face. "Today," she said softly, "you will face challenges that test not only skill and understanding but also courage. Some of these challenges will come from outside forces, and some may come from within. You must be prepared for both." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He understood that these were not just lessons. They were trials meant to prepare him for the responsibilities of standing beside her. Together, they walked through the palace halls, moving toward the eastern wing, a section rarely visited by humans. This area was the heart of sensitive political activity, where whispers of dissent and hidden agendas often stirred beneath the surface. As they entered the wing, Elias immediately noticed subtle signs of unrest. A Zyrathi aide glanced nervously in their direction before scurrying away, and distant voices carried hints of urgency and concern. Princess Elara's eyes narrowed. "Something is happening," she said. "We are not alone in our intentions." There are those who do not wish for a human to be part of our world, and their actions may test us today. The first challenge appeared unexpectedly. A message arrived from the Palace Council. A series of disputes had erupted between neighboring districts over resources and governance. Some Zyrathi families questioned the Queen's leadership, claiming that her decisions were influenced by outsiders. Elias realized immediately that these disputes were more than simple disagreements. They were attempts to undermine trust and create conflict. Elara turned to him. "You must help me understand the situation. Observe, listen, and guide. Remember, your role is not to dominate but to advise and support. Your insight as a human can be valuable, but only if you act wisely." Elias felt a surge of determination. He had studied the Zyrathi culture, their traditions, and their politics, but the real test was here, navigating a situation fraught with tension and potential danger. He listened carefully to reports from the districts, asking thoughtful questions and considering the perspectives of all parties. Using his human intuition, he identified the subtle motivations behind each complaint and proposed solutions that maintained fairness and promoted cooperation. The council listened with surprise. Humans were often underestimated in Zyrathi society, yet Elia's approach combined logic, empathy, and creativity. He offered strategies that respected tradition while encouraging flexibility, allowing conflicting parties to reach agreements without confrontation. The council members exchanged glances, and though some remained skeptical, they began to see the value in his guidance. After the council session, Elara led Elias to the palace gardens. The twin suns hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the glowing plants. Elias took a deep breath, grateful for a brief moment of calm, but the respite was short-lived. A sudden alert sounded, and the palace's security sensors indicated unusual activity in one of the administrative chambers. Elara's expression tightened. "It seems we are not only dealing with disputes. Someone is attempting to interfere directly with our operations. Follow me, but remain cautious." They moved swiftly through the corridors, their steps quiet but purposeful. When they arrived, they found evidence of sabotage. Sensitive data had been tampered with, records disrupted, and communication lines altered. Elias' mind raced. He had dealt with challenges and disputes before, but this was different. This was deliberate, calculated, and dangerous. "Do you understand the gravity of this?" Elara asked, her voice steady but intense. "These actions could destabilize the palace, undermine trust in leadership, and threaten the alliances we are trying to build. We must act quickly and wisely." Elias nodded, feeling the pressure. He had learned to stay calm under stress, but this was a new level of responsibility. Together, they examined the evidence, piecing together clues that indicated the saboteurs were likely from within the palace, individuals who opposed the Queen's decisions and saw a human ally as a threat. The next hours were a test of both intellect and courage. Elias and Elara worked together to identify patterns, anticipate the saboteurs' next moves, and secure critical systems. They moved through the palace with precision, coordinating guards, verifying records, and reinforcing security protocols. Elias realized that being human gave him a unique perspective. He could approach problems with creative solutions, seeing patterns and possibilities that even the Zyrathi overlooked. As they worked, Elias observed Elara closely. She remained calm, decisive, and unwavering, yet he sensed the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. He understood that standing beside her was not merely symbolic. It required active support, quick thinking, and moral courage. Every decision they made carried consequences, and the stakes were higher than anything he had faced before. Their investigation led them to a hidden chamber deep within the palace. Here, they discovered evidence of the rival factions' plans, secret communications, encrypted messages, and strategies aimed at discrediting the Queen and her allies. Elias studied the information carefully, using logic and intuition to understand both the content and the intent. Elara watched him with a mixture of curiosity and trust, allowing him to take the lead in interpreting the evidence. "This is more than I expected," Elias admitted quietly. "They are organized and they understand the weaknesses in our system. But their actions are predictable once you recognize their motivations. We can counter them." Elara nodded. "Then we must act. But remember, Elias, confrontation is not always the answer. Sometimes strategy, subtlety, and understanding are stronger than force. You have shown the ability to see beyond immediate threats. Trust your judgment." Using the information they had gathered, Elias devised a plan to neutralize the sabotage without escalating the conflict. He suggested a method of communication that exposed the faction's intentions without directly accusing them, allowing the Queen to maintain authority while avoiding unnecessary conflict. Elara followed his guidance, implementing the strategy with precision and care. By evening, the crisis had been averted. The palace was secure, the council's trust in leadership remained intact, and the rival faction had been subtly contained. Elias felt a deep sense of relief, but also a growing understanding of what it meant to stand beside Elara. This was not about personal glory or recognition. It was about responsibility, loyalty, and the courage to act wisely under pressure. As they walked through the palace gardens, the twin suns dipping below the horizon, Elias reflected on the day. He had faced challenges that tested his intellect, judgment, and courage. He had navigated political intrigue, countered sabotage, and supported a leader in moments of intense pressure. Each step had reinforced the lessons of patience, observation, and empathy he had learned since arriving on Clethara. Princess Elara spoke softly, her voice carrying both pride and seriousness. "Today you have seen that danger is not always obvious. Some threats are hidden, subtle, and calculated. To stand beside me, you must recognize these dangers and respond with wisdom, courage, and integrity. You have done well, Elias, but remember the trials are not over." Elias nodded, understanding the depth of her words. He had learned that leadership, trust, and courage were intertwined. To support Elara, he would need to remain vigilant, think critically, and act ethically. He would need to continue observing, learning, and adapting, qualities that he had as a human, and which he realized could be invaluable in a world as complex as Clethara. That night, Elias sat by the window of his quarters, gazing at the glowing forests and crystalline towers. He thought about the day's events, the disputes, the sabotage, the careful strategies, and the trust placed in him by Princess Elara. He felt a growing sense of connection to this world, its people, and its values. He also felt a quiet confidence. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, but he now understood that their unique perspective, the combination of creativity, empathy, courage, and moral reasoning, could make a difference. Standing beside the princess was not about privilege. It was about contribution, insight, and the willingness to face challenges with integrity. As he prepared for sleep, Elias made a silent promise to himself. He would continue to learn, to adapt, and to stand with Elara through whatever trials awaited them. He would use every lesson, every insight, and every ounce of human ingenuity to support her, protect the palace, and build bridges between their worlds. The twin moons rose over Clethara, casting their soft glow across the palace and gardens. Elias Ray closed his eyes, ready to rest, but aware that tomorrow would bring new challenges. The day had tested him, strengthened him, and shown him the importance of vigilance, wisdom, and courage. And he knew, deep within, that he was ready to face whatever came next. The morning on Clethara was calm, yet beneath the serene light of the twin suns, Elias Ray could sense the weight of the day ahead. The palace was alive with quiet energy. Guards patrolled the halls, advisors whispered in small groups, and somewhere deep within, the hidden tensions of the rival faction still lingered. Elias dressed carefully, straightening his uniform and checking his equipment. Today would be the ultimate test, the culmination of everything he had learned. Princess Elara awaited him in the courtyard, her expression calm but firm. She did not need to speak immediately. Her presence alone reminded Elias of the responsibility he carried. Standing beside her was more than a duty. It was a commitment to protect, to understand, and to act with courage and wisdom. "Today," she said, her voice soft yet commanding, "we will face the consequences of the unrest and sabotage from the rival faction. They will test us directly. You must be prepared to act, to reason, and to stand beside me without hesitation." Elias nodded, feeling both anticipation and resolve. He had grown in the days since arriving on Clethara. He had navigated challenges that tested patience, intelligence, and courage. He had mediated disputes, countered sabotage, and earned the trust of the princess. Today, everything would be tested together. Their first step led them to the council chamber, where emissaries from several districts had gathered unexpectedly. Their expressions were guarded, their voices laced with caution and suspicion. The rival faction had deliberately orchestrated this meeting to challenge the Queen's authority and test the resolve of her allies. Elara turned to Elias. "You must help me. Observe their intentions, speak carefully, and guide us toward resolution. Use your insight and creativity. Remember, humans are often underestimated, and that can be an advantage." Elias took a deep breath. He had faced smaller challenges before, but this was a test on a larger scale. He observed the emissaries, noting the subtle shifts in their posture, the flickers of light across their skin, and the tone of their voices. Every detail carried meaning. Using his understanding of human diplomacy and the lessons learned from Elara, he prepared to intervene carefully. The meeting began, and the rival faction made their move. They questioned the Queen's decisions, suggesting that her alliance with a human was unwise and could compromise the stability of Clethara. A murmur ran through the chamber, and some advisors nodded in agreement. Elias felt the tension rise, but he remained calm. He had learned that reaction under pressure revealed character, and he focused on clarity, empathy, and logic. He addressed the chamber, his voice steady and confident. "I understand your concerns," he said. "Change can be unsettling, and new alliances may seem risky. But consider the outcomes, not just the intentions. Princess Elara has shown wisdom, courage, and fairness in her leadership. Her choices are not made lightly, and the inclusion of humans does not diminish her authority. It strengthens it by offering new perspectives, strategies, and solutions." A silence followed. Elias continued, explaining how collaboration between humans and Xyrathi could bring balance, creativity, and problem-solving capabilities that no single species could achieve alone. He cited examples from their recent challenges, resolving disputes, mediating conflicts, and countering sabotage with intelligence rather than force. By the end of his explanation, some of the emissaries had visibly shifted their stance. They still had doubts, but Elias' calm reasoning and thoughtful approach had earned their attention. Elara gave him a subtle nod of approval, a signal that his words had the desired effect. The rival faction, however, was not finished. Their leader rose, attempting to incite further tension by suggesting that the palace itself was vulnerable to human influence and that the alliance might bring unforeseen danger. Elias realized that words alone would not resolve this. They needed a demonstration of competence, courage, and integrity. Elara placed a hand on his shoulder. "We will show them our strength together," she said. "Not through aggression, but through action, coordination, and strategy. You are ready, Elias. Trust yourself as I trust you." They left the council chamber and headed toward the eastern wing, where the palace's critical systems were maintained. The rival faction had attempted additional sabotage during the meeting, trying to disrupt communication networks and security measures. Elia's mind raced as he assessed the situation. He remembered the lessons from previous days: observation, careful planning, empathy, and creative problem-solving. Working alongside Elara, he guided teams to restore the compromised systems, using human ingenuity to identify hidden flaws and implement solutions quickly. The Zirathi teams followed their instructions, impressed by Elia's clarity and calm under pressure. Together, they neutralized the threat before it could escalate, securing the palace and ensuring the safety of its inhabitants. After the crisis was contained, Elias and Elara returned to the courtyard. The twin suns were setting, casting warm light over the palace and gardens. Elias felt a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. The rival faction had been tested and restrained, the council's trust maintained, and the palace secure. More importantly, he had proven not only his capabilities but also the value of human perspective, creativity, and moral reasoning. Elara looked at him with a mixture of pride and respect. "You have done more than I expected," she said. "You have faced challenges that could have overwhelmed anyone, but you remained calm, observant, and wise. You have proven that humans are capable of more than we often realize. You have earned your place beside me." Elias felt a surge of gratitude and humility. It had not been an easy journey. Every moment had required focus, courage, and adaptability. Yet here he was, recognized not just as an ally but as a partner, a trusted companion, and a bridge between two civilizations. That evening, the Queen herself summoned Elias. Queen Lyra's presence was as commanding as ever, yet her gaze held warmth and consideration. "Captain Elias Ray," she said, her voice resonant and clear, "you have shown wisdom, courage, and integrity beyond what many of our species expect. You have proven that humans are not just capable, but valuable allies in our world. You have earned the trust of my daughter, the respect of the council, and the admiration of many in our society." Elias bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, I am honored," he said. "I could not have done this without Princess Elara's guidance and the lessons of your people. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve and to learn." The Queen's eyes softened. "Your humanity, your ability to see, understand, and act with both heart and reason is your greatest strength. You have reminded us that different perspectives are not weaknesses, but sources of strength. You will continue to stand beside my daughter, not as an outsider, but as a valued companion and trusted ally. Together, you will help shape the future of Clethara and the relationship between our worlds." Elias felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had journeyed far from Earth, faced challenges that tested every part of him, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more capable. He had learned that courage was not just about facing danger, but about thinking clearly, acting ethically, and inspiring trust. He had discovered that humans, though small in the galaxy, possessed qualities that could make a lasting difference: empathy, adaptability, creativity, and moral courage. The next days were filled with celebrations and recognition. The Council formally endorsed the alliance with humans, acknowledging the value of Elias' contributions. The palace staff welcomed him not as a visitor, but as a partner. The rival faction, while still present, had been tempered by the demonstration of competence, fairness, and integrity that Elias and Elara had shown. Elias took time to reflect on the journey. He remembered the first moment he had frozen in the Queen's presence, uncertain and cautious. He thought of the lessons with creatures, shifting floors, glowing gardens, and challenging simulations. He recalled the rival faction's attempts at sabotage, the disputes he had mediated, and the strategies he had helped implement. Every moment had shaped him, tested him, and prepared him for this point. One evening, he and Princess Elara stood together on a balcony overlooking the glowing forests. The twin moons rose in the sky, their soft light mingling with the luminescent glow of the planet below. The palace seemed peaceful, yet Elias knew that vigilance and wisdom would always be required. You have changed our perspective, Elias, Elara said softly. Humans are often underestimated, but your actions have proven the potential we might have overlooked. You have earned your place beside me, not by force, but by understanding, courage, and integrity. You are a reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures of trust can shape the future. Elias smiled, feeling a deep sense of connection. And you have taught me much as well, Princess. I have learned patience, observation, and the importance of understanding a world different from my own. I will continue to stand beside you, not just in duty, but in partnership and trust. As they stood side by side, watching the glowing forests and the twin moons, Elias felt a profound sense of accomplishment and belonging. He was a human, far from home, in a world filled with wonder, complexity, and challenge. Yet he had found a place where his qualities were valued, where his courage mattered, and where his actions could make a lasting difference. The twin suns and moons of Clethara cast long, soft shadows across the palace as night settled in. Elias Ray knew that his journey had been extraordinary, and that the lessons he had learned would guide him for the rest of his life. He had faced challenges that tested intellect, courage, and character, and he had risen to meet them. Most importantly, he had proven that humanity, curious, brave, empathetic, and creative, was a strength that could bridge worlds, forge alliances, and inspire trust. He had earned the honor of standing beside Princess Elara, and with that trust came both responsibility and hope. The stars above Clethara shone brightly, reflecting the glow of the planet below. Elias and Elara remained on the balcony, side by side, ready to face the future together. The journey had been long, the challenges great, but they had emerged stronger, united, and prepared to shape a new era of understanding and cooperation between their worlds. And in that quiet, glowing moment, Elias understood that the true meaning of standing beside someone was not merely to follow or protect, but to share courage, wisdom, and hope. That understanding, he realized, was the greatest gift of all, and the foundation for a future where humans and Xyrathi could stand together, stronger than either could alone.